Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to talk to you guys about my tendency to overshare and just over explain. I'm going to talk to you guys about that. One, it's been a really requested topic and people want to know more about it, and I thought, why not share my personal experience with this? And two, it's something that I really do struggle with. So if I can raise awareness about it and talk to you guys about it, hopefully it'll make some of you feel not so alone in your struggles with oversharing. So let's get on to today's video. But first, if you could smash me a big thumbs up down below and subscribe to my YouTube channel, I will forever be grateful. So let's get on to the video. As an autistic ADHDer, I often find myself oversharing and lacking any form of a verbal filter. I have just verbal diarrhea basically all of the time, and then I'm sat thinking, why did I just say that? That was so inappropriate, or that was a secret, I shouldn't have said that, or it's not appropriate to say that at this time, I find myself oversharing and over explaining everything. And let me know down in the comments if you can relate to that, because I think a lot of you neurodivergents will be able to relate to this. So I'm just going to share some of the reasons why we might lack verbal filters. So yeah, let's go. Some neurodivergents can struggle with impulsiveness, which can lead to us oversharing personal experiences, opinions, some thoughts that probably shouldn't have been said. And we don't stop to think about the consequences or whether or not what we're saying is appropriate. So yeah, sometimes we have verbal diarrhea, and that lack of filter can cause some trouble. Number two is some neurodivergents can struggle to regulate their energy levels, which then can lead to some of us being hyperverbal and talking really excessively. And we may share more than intended because of our heightened hyperactivity. Sometimes we overshare, and like I say again, like the previous one, impulsiveness, hyperverbal, it doesn't really lead to us having any time to stop to think about what we're saying. We just blurt it out, and again, like I said, it can have some real potential consequences, and we can say things that are just not appropriate for that time. We're oversharing, we might overstep the mark, we might say some things that we shouldn't have, weren't intended. I know for a fact sometimes I've said things and thought, oh, that was meant to be a secret, oh, I shouldn't have said that. And just because I've been excited or I've said something, then I don't have that verbal filter to be no, we're not saying that. I'm so impulsive, and my hyperactivity levels are hard for me sometimes to balance out. So that could be another reason why. So number three is some of us neurodivergents really struggle with maintaining focus within conversations. So we may overshare to try to contribute something to the conversation, regardless of whether or not it's relevant to the conversation. We just seek that engagement and that connection to people within the conversation. We don't want to feel like we're being left out, or we're being rude for not getting involved in the conversation. So sometimes we say things that probably aren't even relevant to the conversation or actually appropriate to say at that time. So yeah, sometimes we just seek that connection and we say things because we think it's going to, help us establish that connection or, that common ground, but it's not always the right way to go about things. Yeah. So number four is definitely something I can relate to, and it is really struggling to interpret social cues and just knowing basically when to stop. So yeah, I really struggle with knowing just when I am oversharing. Sometimes I do it without realising, because I'm I just seek that engagement, and sometimes I don't realise people's body language, people's kind of tone of voice, they may change, but I struggle to interpret that. The cues just go over my head, and sometimes people be I'm just what? And it doesn't hit me till I've said it and I've sat back and I'm why did I say that? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we just misinterpret social situations, social cues. Yeah. And it just leads us down that rabbit hole of oversharing. So number five is a lot of us neurodivergent struggle with executive functions. We really struggle with, planning, organising, which actually can lead to us having difficulty structuring and organising our thoughts. So like I say, it just leads to us having verbal diarrhea, because that lack of filter, it does play a role in a lot of people's kind of oversharing. A lot of, like, neurotypicals might be able to like filter, like, oh, don't say that, that's inappropriate, or like, I don't need to share, there's no necessary reason for me to share that. But like for us neurodivergents, that doesn't always work, because we have difficulty like structuring our thoughts, structuring like what we should say, what we shouldn't say, and just being able to filter out that thing. Like, we really struggle with that. So it can make it really difficult for us neurodivergents to, like, you know, structure what we should say and what we shouldn't say. Like, it can play a huge part in the reasons why we overshare. So number 6, I know a lot of you neurodivergents are going to be able to relate to this one. I know I certainly do. Now, this one is, some of us who are neurodivergent may struggle to regulate our emotions, which can lead to us being more open, sharing and, you know, expressing our emotions more intensely than, say, a neurotypical would. So we may, at a dinner party, at a social event, just like, you know, at a coffee date, we may open up and be more expressive than a neurotypical would. That's not a bad thing, that's just who we are. But it can be more than what is sociably, you know, acceptable. We may overshare, and it can sometimes come across like, why did you share that? Like, that's not relevant. But we just want to share, like, we just want to connect. And sometimes it can just leave us in a really vulnerable kind of situation, because we've opened up, we've shared our thoughts, shared our feelings, shared our emotions, and people are just like, I only asked if you're all right, but you've just told me like 10 years worth of trauma. Like, you know, sometimes we can overshare our thoughts and our feelings more intensely than, say, a neurotypical would. So number 7 is the last one, and I think it's the most relatable out of all of them, to be honest. This one is, when you're a neurodivergent, you may grow up, not even, just basically, you might just feel like you never fit in, and you fear being rejected, you fear being misunderstood. So you overshare, you over-explain to try to connect to people. It's an attempt to try to make people understand you. So if you're like, I like purple, but I do like blue too, and I like green, and I like pink and red, because you don't want people to be like, you don't want people to think that you don't like any other colour. Do you know what I mean? You just don't want to be misinterpreted or misunderstood. So you try to over-explain to kind of not be misunderstood, basically. The fear of being rejected or being misunderstood just leads to us oversharing to try to establish that connection, and we just seek validation. We want people to accept us, so we say what we think people want to hear. So, you know, sometimes that leads to us oversharing personal things, and people are like, why did you just share that? Like, but we try to do it to establish that connection, because we don't want to be misunderstood, we don't want to be rejected, we don't want to be, you know, pushed out. We just want people to validate us, to accept us, and to connect with us. And it can be a way of us coping in social situations. We don't like, the rejection sensitivity kicks in, and it creates havoc, it creates chaos, and we can just overshare because we desperately don't want to be rejected or misunderstood or like anything. Yeah. So those are just some of the reasons why us neurodivergents may end up oversharing. Now, they aren't all of them. The list doesn't stop here. There are many, many reasons why us neurodivergents may overshare. These are just some that I can personally relate with, that I wanted to share with you guys, and I hope that they're relatable to you, and I hope that you could be like, great, I'm not alone, I'm not the only one struggling here. So if you can relate to this, let me know down below in the comments, and if you have any other suggestions that you want me to talk about, like topics or anything like that, let me know down below in the comments, and I will try to make that happen. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!